Well, good afternoon, coasters. And, the weather, lockdown. This is day 12 of lockdown. And I've been looking around for someone really interesting to interview. And, you've all heard about Groundswell, and most of you were involved in the big protest. And I was lucky enough to be a speaker in Blenheim. And I know in Hokitika here, the streets were packed. In fact, we had a tank come along, and it led the parade, a World War II tank. But enough of that. I want to. There's two names that you probably have heard a lot about, but you've never met. One's Bryce Mckenzie, and the other one's Laurie Patterson. And today I've got Bryce Mckenzie here. Bryce, thank you so much for joining us. I've heard a lot about you, and I thought, what a great time to have a chat.
Thanks, Bruce. I hope I don't disappoint you.
Oh, you won't. Hey, tell me, who is Bryce Mckenzie?
Look, I'm a second generation farmer in the West Otago Valley in Pomahaka. I was a sheep and beef farmer, and then I've got two sons, and had to try and get them eating as well, Bruce. So we converted to dairy about 16 years ago. So my sons run the operation now, and I spend my time doing groundswell stuff.
Oh, I love it. Hey, tell me, Bryce, where did Groundswell come from?
Okay, well, what happened was, Bruce, about August last year, I wrote a post on Facebook because I was part of the original Pomahaka Water Care Group, a founding member. I knew a lot about how things operate, especially with trying to get your water up to a standard that is good enough for passing all the tests. And I looked at the NPS on fresh water, and I immediately broke into complaining about what a ridiculous thing this is. So my wife got fed up with me in the finish and said, do something about it. So when your wife says something like that because she's fed up with you moaning, you take the attitude that, well, maybe I should do something. But I said, well, what on earth can I do? And she said, well, do a Facebook post. So I did. And I put a few pretty gnarly things in it, but I certainly got the point across that I wasn't happy with the NPS on fresh water. And I hit the go button, and goodness me, within about 2 minutes, somebody rang me and said, oh, can you make that public? And she was an influencer. So she got a hold of it and put it out there, and it went viral. It was shared over 7,000 times. They reckon it reached 1.5 million people. So one guy in particular stood out. I couldn't keep up with the comments, but in the actual post, I said that, we shouldn't take this lying down. We should get our tractors and go to Wellington. Now, one guy noticed that, and that was Laurie Patterson, and he just put on the post, he says, I've got my tractor ready, I'm coming with you. So, from there, I tried to actually organise a tractor protest running the length of New Zealand, but it fell down about Dunedin. I couldn't get people didn't buy into it, basically, Bruce. So I talked with Laurie, and Laurie said, well, why don't we just go to Gore? I thought, well, that's a good idea. So anyway, I put another Facebook post up saying I'm going to Gore in my tractor on such and such a day. Would love some company. Laurie did the same, and goodness gracious me, we got to Gore and there's over 100 tractors. So it was amazing how people bought in.
Bryce, I remember watching that, and I think the figure was something like 120 tractors. I couldn't believe it. I felt so proud to be a South Islander when I saw it. And I realised then that a lot of the things that I was worried about and our farmers are worried about, the whole of the South Island was worried about it. And so that was a great start to...
Was it? Yeah.
It was brilliant.
Yeah, so what happened from there? What happened from there, though, Bruce, was a lot of those people that were at that protest, Laurie and I got on to individuals and said, let's have a meeting and see what's happening. For a start, I said to Laurie, well, that's it, I've done it, I'm going home fishing now. And he said, no, we'll set an expectation. So anyway, we called a meeting at the local hotel, basically, and there's about 12 or 14 turned up, and from there they decided we'd start a groundswell, Bruce.
And amazing. What triggered the nationwide protest, which I was just so proud to be part of? What triggered it?
Well, I guess we realised that there was a real deep feeling of people that were unsettled about unworkable regulations being put on them. And it was the timing was perfect, Bruce, because we didn't have to do a lot of work. We said, I'll tell you what, we were pretty game because we didn't have many organisers, and we put a post up on Facebook saying we were going to have a nationwide protest, and then thought, wonder what's going to happen here. But of course, we all know what happened. We just got inundated with people calling us saying, can we help out? So what we did was we started lining up all the towns with coordinators, and then we had to actually try and get, like Christchurch, we had to cut tractors off. We heard there were so many tractors going there, we needed to get satellites all around Christchurch to cut them off. So so that's the way we did it.
Well, it was interesting in Blenheim because the speeches were to start at 12:30, and I think that lady's name was Lois, I think, said to me, look, the tractors and the utes are still out at Countdown. She said it's miles away. She said, we're going to have to get on with it. And they just flowed and flowed and flowed. It was.
I think would be Loney, was it?
I think it was, yes.
Yeah. Really good. Yeah.
A real dynamic woman, absolutely dynamic. And Bryce, the thing that I noticed at that particular get together was most of the people were from members of the public. There was obviously a lot of farmers there. Every time, while making a speech, every time you got to a key point, the farmers were whistling the dogs, and the dogs were going off. The hair was standing up on the back of my neck. It was just awesome. But I was really, really impressed by the support that the average person in the street gave the groundswell.
Yeah, look, it blew us away, really, Bruce. But I guess, once again, it was just tapping into the feeling of the New Zealand people. I mean, we didn't do anything special. We just found out that what we were feeling, most people throughout New Zealand were feeling. And I mean, I found that from that very first post. I actually only said something that everybody was feeling, but nobody knew how to actually get it out there. And that's been the case ever since. I know with yourself, with you standing up, and Tania, I mean, it's been absolutely brilliant. Like, people are latching on to that because you're only speaking what everybody's feeling.
That's how it is. And the thing that staggered me about the groundswell protest, it was the biggest one that we'd ever seen in Hokitika and Blenheim and all around the place. The mainstream media dropped it really quickly, didn't they?
Yeah, they did. They couldn't wait to get away from it, could they?
No, but what happened was the people in social media picked it up and just ran with it. There was thousands of hours of video that was floating around the country. It was pretty amazing.
We're all over the world, Bruce. We got feedback from all around the world.
It's one of the things that comes out in most of the things that I read is the statement that government is working with the farmers, and it doesn't ring that true amongst the farmers that I deal with. How do you find it?
Yeah, look, Bruce, it's a pretty entangled web, as we're finding out that there's a lot of layers of people before you get to the government and the farming industry. And we've got a whole lot of sections. We've got Beef and Lamb, Dairy NZ, and got Federated Farmers, who are the three main ones. But I mean, under them, there's the dairy industry, the horticulture industry. It goes on and on. I think there's about 11 or 12. But then once you get through that, you've got the food and fibre leaders group. And this is the one that Jacinda Ardern refers to as the voice of the people. And we're just not exactly sure how they operate. And so that's what we're trying to find out. We've only just got a mandate to get the minutes from this meeting. So we're not sure that actually the true message is actually getting out, and that's the problem, Bruce.
It's really interesting when you know, I've heard a number of people say to me, look, why are Groundswell doing this? And I always say, well, my observation is it's because you guys are not doing your job. You're not getting out there. And I mean, these people are not organised. Groundswell's not organised. It's just the people are listening, and they need a voice, don't they?
Yeah, they do need a voice. The thing is that, you know, we're not here to put beef and lamb dairying there to federated farmers down. We think that they play an important part. What we're here for is to see that they actually stand united together. That's the most important thing to us. If you're going to have a voice and you're going to be negotiating at Parliament, you've got to have a strong voice. So we're trying to motivate the people, and all the way along, Bruce, we've tried to actually pick up the positive stuff. So like yourself and Tania, and there's a few other people, we get good articles coming to us. We try and accentuate that on our social media page so that people have got good reading. We try not to bag anybody, because we feel that that sets you up to get bagged yourself. So we're just trying to be positive all the time.
Bryce, you want to try being a mayor and you get used to being big. That's great fun. Hey, now tell me, the freshwater legislation, obviously really important in Southland and on the coast here. Are you seeing, adjustments? Is there any light at the end of the tunnel?
You wouldn't know. I mean, yes, just this at the weekend, you may know that there've been adjustments done with the pugging regulations, and I'm trying to think of the other one. Oh, sowing dates, which just, I mean, they're only they're up for what would you say, consultation. So there's a consultation process, but boy, I mean, we should never have been consulting on this. There were 17,000 submissions originally, and it should have been actually dealt with then. Everybody told them in the coast, everybody told them that you just can't get your paddock sown by a certain date. If it rains, it rains, and that's all there is to it. So that was, we were the same. They just didn't listen. I mean, they tweaked it, after about 2 weeks it came out they were changing it. Now, I've heard that they apparently they made this decision some weeks ago that they were going to do what they've just released. Well, why the heck wouldn't you just tell the people? Why would you wait? It's just crazy stuff.
It is crazy. And look, our experience to date has been that they'll carry on and do whatever they want to do. However, the power's with the people at the end of the day. And now, Jamie McFadden, SNAs, he's a bit of a wizard.
He's unreal, isn't he? Do you know he gets parliamentarians ringing him up so he can tell them about it and educate them on it. He's amazing. He's lived it his whole life, of course, so he knows exactly what he's talking about.
Well, I can tell you, we listen to everything he says because we've learned so much from him, and it's very, very useful.
Yeah, the thing about him is he's credible. I mean, he was, what would you call a greenie? He worked for Doc, basically, so he's a real greenie. And now he's re-establishing native areas. I mean, you can't argue with him. He knows what's going on.
Yeah, no, he's got it. Now, what about the ETS, the emissions trading scheme? And I see the price is going up another $20 a tonne, and that's going to have widespread cost impacts. Do you come across that? Do you?
Yeah, we sure do. I mean, it's got to be the most ridiculous thing ever. If they want to plant trees, why aren't we using it for our own carbon credits? If that's the way they want to go, why are we selling them off so somebody else can just keep polluting and claim that they've got trees in New Zealand, so it's fine? That seems to me to be ridiculous. I mean, they're going about it all wrong anyway, Bruce, but I don't know if we want to go down that track.
Well, I guess that's a track we'll eventually go down because, look, here on the coast, $20 extra a tonne on coal going to Westland Milk Products. They use about $50 million worth of coal a year and has a massive impact. most of our schools. Our brand new hospital has got a coal boiler in. It's brand new. It's only been open, a year or so, and it's got a coal boiler. Anything with horticulture, we're getting slammed, and it's a discussion that needs to be had at some stage.
Yeah, look, Bruce, we're considered the most efficient producers of food in the world as far as emissions go. And we represent 0.17% of world emissions. That's a teaspoonful out of an Olympic swimming pool. And here we are being asked to drop our food production because our animals are polluting the planet. And yet that production will go offshore for somebody who's far worse at producing than us. And the other thing is that, right now in China, they're building over 100 coal-fired electric power plants. Why don't they spend some time on that and leave us alone?
I love the way that we look at that 1.5 million tons of coal that we import. We're not allowed to dig our stuff up, but we import it from Indonesia. Got me beat.
Yeah, it's got us beat too. We're with you there, and it's going to be great, isn't it? We have to get more coal to power our electric vehicles, Bruce.
Well, look, moving on to utes. Do you drive a ute?
Yes, I do.
Do you feel embarrassed when you drive down the street?
No, I don't.
It must be a legitimate ute.
That is a legitimate ute. Right.
Actually, didn't that decision wind people up? And here we are today. Nothing changed. They didn't back down an inch. They just carried on. Taxed the farmer and gave the incentive to people who live in a city and sit down drinking coffee and talking about the environment. Got me beat.
Yeah, it's a real interesting one. I was doing a radio program one night, and they set me up actually, and it's the project actually, and they set me up. They talked about what about how I go to the supermarket here in Auckland, and I see this big ute and another one not far away, and she said, for me and my wee car, I think that's totally ridiculous. What do you think about that? And I said, well, I think people should be allowed to buy whatever they like, really. I don't think we should have any say in the matter. She didn't like it at all.
I was going to say, that wouldn't have gone down well.
No, it didn't go down. They cut it down, Bruce.
Yeah, Bryce, you've been following the climate change legislation and the Climate Change Commission's report. Can you see any problems there?
Oh, yes. I can see a lot of problems there, Bruce. Yeah, certainly can. I don't know where that's going to end up. We've talked about it, and it's a real gnarly one. There's so many pitfalls in there, Bruce. It's ridiculous.
It's a can of worms, isn't it?
Isn't it ever? Well,
now, what about? Sorry,
I know you're going to talk about Three Waters, aren't you, Bruce?
I'm getting there. What about RMA changes with the new 3 plans replaced the 1 plan?
Yeah, well, that's the same, isn't it? Jamie actually is very good on that, and I wouldn't like to talk too much on it, but if you ever get a chance to get Jamie on your program, I'm sure he'll talk about it with you.
Oh, I'd love to. Now, what about my favourite at the moment is Three Waters, and because we've just discovered that there's 75,000 individual suppliers in New Zealand, and a huge number of them are guys like yourself. Now, we've looked at it and said, do we think it's fair that Bryce Mckenzie, who might have a house on his farm and he might be feeding water into the house next door, he suddenly gets captured by the regulations and has to bring his supply up to the World Health Standards? And we're looking and saying, this ain't going to work. So have you had a look at that, Bryce?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Look, with our farm supply, you're exactly right. We supply 3 houses. Now, we're in the position where our well is actually one of the Otago Regional Council's monitored wells. So we know the standard of the water all the time, which makes it absolutely ridiculous that we'd have to do anything with it, because there's nothing to be done with it because it's continually monitored. But, you know, going further than that, the issue with the Three Waters is, you know, it's already owned by the ratepayer, who is also a taxpayer. Now they've got to buy it off themselves so somebody else can run it. I mean, how ridiculous is this?
It's the weirdest thing, and I love the spin out of government. I mean, have you been watching the dirty duck and the dirty trout ads? And
I haven't seen it yet. I actually haven't seen it. I've heard a lot about it. Haven't seen it.
My grandchildren think it's just awesome. It's, but look, and of course we're told that from a council perspective, we're told that there's going to be, the assets are going to be taken off us for about in between 7 and 8 cents in the dollar, and they're going to be put into a big company, which is going to employ about between 6,000 and 9,000 extra people. That's great for the economy, and it's all going to be cheaper. And the best part is that you don't have to worry about it, because the assets will still be owned by the people. Now, on the West Coast here and in Westland, we paid for our assets. We own them, and you're not getting them, Bryce. You're not getting them. We're keeping them.
If I just arrived here from another planet, I'd be absolutely gobsmacked that you're telling me this. Do you know that, Bruce?
well, I guess it is another planet. Well, now, Bryce, what happens next with Groundswell?
Well, we're doing these Friday toot-ups, and I see they're catching on more and more. So we've got 2 more weeks of that. So I think if we go out of lockdown, there could be a lot of tooting. The idea of it was, Bruce, to alert people in the middle of the cities that something was going on, and we've had some really good feedback already that has happened. But because when people are tooting, and often they're traveling, they don't actually hear anybody else. They think it's not happening, but we're getting reports back that people definitely do hear them.
Oh, yeah, look, I was driving into town the other day, and all I could hear was the people in the paddocks tooting. And I'm thinking, what's going on? It was actually quite good.
Look, it attracts all types. You may have seen we put Tanya up on our Facebook page, and of course she had a mask on. Anybody that should have noticed, the door of the vehicle was open, which obviously meant she could have just come from shopping or just going shopping, or she was within 2 meters of somebody and had to have a mask on. But my gosh, did everybody climb into that? We got the anti-vaxxers, we got the anti-mask people. I tell you, it was incredible.
Oh, well, normally someone with a mask on and a hoodie on, they're going to pinch something, aren't they?
Only on the coast. Only on the coast, Bruce.
That's a bit rough. Now, look, hey, this will interest you, Bryce. Now, one of the mayors, there's a majority of mayors in the country that, in my opinion, are not going to go anywhere near this Three Waters thing. One of the suggestions has been made that we talk to Groundswell, we talk to fed farmers, we talk to anybody that wants to talk, and that the mayors from the top of the New Zealand, up in Northland to Gore, set off in a procession and give everyone the chance to bring their tractor along for maybe 20k or 50k, and the mayors all end up in Wellington with their chains on the steps of Parliament, delivering a nice, quiet message in relation to how rapid everything's changing and how it doesn't have the support of the people. What do you think about that?
Actually, I think that's not a bad idea, Bruce. We were intending to do something similar, but we're waiting till February. But with the Three Waters, maybe you have to go sooner than February. But maybe we should have a yarn about how we could do this, Bruce. I'd love it. I mean, I'd love all the mayors to arrive there with the chains on. It would be just absolutely brilliant.
Oh, I think you'll find that there's huge support for it, and we'd look. I suspect that we would love to join Groundswell and head to Wellington, and just allow the people in every town to come along with their utes and their tractors and join you for, 20 minutes or a couple of hours or whatever they want to do. Have a bit of a talk, track it from a social media point of view, track it from both ends of the island in the same way that, how we track Santa Claus when he leaves the North Pole? We could do the same thing.
Of course we could. Actually, I mean, we have got plans, and we did have plans for February to be doing something like this, only it was going to be massive. But I think it depends on November. I mean, we've lined up for November. We're not sort of letting too much out yet, but it'll be absolutely massive November. The number of people that have got on board with us, I'm talking about big trucking companies and that sort of thing. So, I mean, this is affecting everybody. And so hopefully we shouldn't probably be talking about November, should we?
No. We'll just leave that one. We'll leave that one for the time being. Now, Bryce, you look like a man that probably doesn't go to the supermarket very often. You look like you're probably a bit like me. I go, if my wife insists, and I'll go shopping for a new pair of denims about every 5 years. The feedback I'm getting about price increases is a real worry.
Okay, it's probably out of my league, Bruce, but I'm sorry about that you're paying so much.
It's like when I've got a couple of sheep in the paddock, and I've no trouble from a meat point of view, but the inflationary costs that are rising up through the community from ETS, fuel taxes, all these taxes, they all rest somewhere, and generally they rest with the farmer who's a producer.
Yeah, look, that's right. I mean, I guess as a dairy farmer, we can't complain too much about what we get for our product at the meantime. But yes, it soon gets absorbed through compliance costs and, as you say, extra freight costs and extra grocery costs. Like that, it soon gets sucked up. So yeah, it's got to be a real worry. And I know we have quite a bit to do with the horticulture guys now. It's amazing how they've jumped on board with us, especially ones up Bombay, and we keep in touch with them. And I'll tell you what, they were only a few days away from not supplying any vegetables at all to Auckland. So they managed to resolve what was going on, but boy, it was a close one. So yeah, they're really feeling it. They are really feeling it.
Yeah, well, they're not alone. Well, look, Bryce, thank you so much for joining me. I'd love you to join me again at any time you want. I'm going to try and find Jamie McFadden and Laurie, because people hear a lot about you. They don't get to see you're like all of us. We're just ordinary people, and
exactly.
You really have done a great thing. You've got a huge following, and I can only congratulate you both on it. And I think it's just because you're straight up and down.
Yeah, I think the fact that we've stuck to unworkable regulations. I've been invited on to debate on radio programs, and I've always said no, I wouldn't do that because I don't want to have to answer questions that are political. We work in unworkable regulations, and that's where we'll stay. Yeah,
and look. It always pays to lead from the front. Once you start following, it's all over. And leaders are hard to come by. And Bryce Mckenzie and Laurie Patterson, you're a couple of leaders in my view. So there we go, coasters. If you've got any questions for Bryce or for Laurie, put it on the comments here. And Bryce has told me he's prepared to join us again at some stage.
Yeah, thanks, Bruce. I certainly will. And the same for yourself and Tanya. You're doing a wonderful job on the coast here too. So just keep up the great work. We're here to support you.
Geez, on that basis, coasters, we're going to have to sign out of this. Hey, have a great day. It's 12th day of lockdown, and that was Bryce Mckenzie.